kids. How are you doing? This is Cassandra Williams with Educational Innovation 360. Today is brought to you by Victoria from the Pink Tub. Make sure you go get some of her bath, her soaps, her oils, her lotions. Make sure you go get that and check that out. Thank you so much, Victoria from the Pink Tub. All right, so today we're going to dive into the subject. We are talking about data-driven decisions by leaders. So let me go ahead and pull this up, add that to stage. Okay, what does it mean to lead a data-driven school, right? Many of our principals from year to year to year, always the goal is to support students in data, support teachers in data, support your staff in data. But the struggle that I see just on that trajectory is they pick too many data points. So let's go ahead and dive in to talk about what we're going to review today. Empowering principals to make great data decisions, thinking about support. So why does it matter? So, of course, it informs strategic decisions. Now, I always love to say, if you are going to use data-driven decisions, make one or two of your data points be related to the district. Now you're saying, oh my gosh, they always have to pick my data decision. No, they're not always picking your data decisions, but it makes it really hard to do something that's against what the district is doing, because usually there's funding tied to the data decision. So for example, if math or ELA, so just say if ELA, which is my baby, is your focus, then you can't pick math because most of the resources and the training and the professional development that's coming from the district and the funding and the is coming through the lens of that subject area. So always think your first data point should always come from the district. Your second data point should be a subsidiary of the district, okay? So we know it informs strategic decisions, identifies areas of improvement, and then supports equity, trying to make sure all students get access to the curriculum. And of course, it enables improvement over time. You can track over time. Some districts love to have similar data points from year to year, so you could track it over time and see continuous growth from year to year. All right, so now understanding our data points is key. One, making sure that it's tied to student achievement. And so everything you do should be tied to student achievement. And so creating that backwards plan, understanding how it infiltrates through the curriculum, whether it's attendance, whatever. Thinking about how are you going to increase student achievement through that data plan. So from assessments to different benchmarks you have, thinking about attendance, what are some engagement activities that you could do, behavior, data, and what does that look like, referrals or suspensions, and then teacher effectiveness, like looking at your observation and student feedback and student work, right? So really looking at all of these key components, but usually most of your data comes from these 4 buckets, give or take. Okay, so now really looking at student trends is crucial, because what happened 10 years ago cannot happen now. Policies must be changed, policies must be updated to really reflect the culture that we're living in. And so if you're not really looking at these trends and these patterns, then wow, you're stuck thinking about what is happening. Then we should employ the same strategy, and it doesn't work. So really looking at what are some of the patterns that you see and how are you tracking over time? How do you compare demographics? Because let me just say, your demographics are changing. You have a large male population, a large maybe African-American population, and what does that mean to incorporate strategies that will be supportive for all learners? So really comparing your demographics and how it's changed and adjusting those gaps. Using multiple modalities of assessments. I can say this forever. ChatGPT is in the mix. And if you think your kids are not using it, you have a problem, right? So thinking about how do we assess with some of our current AI tools that we have in place, like what are we doing to kind of flip the classroom? How are we leveraging our dashboards and data boards? So one of the things that I like to say is when you identify patterns and when you're looking for trends over time and when you know your demographic is changing, and the dashboard has to reflect that. So if your focus is ELA, your dashboard should reflect ELA, and everybody should have access and input to the students that they are serving. Let me say that again. Everybody should have access to the student that they are serving. So what does that mean? We are working as a team on this ELA reading, because reading is still an issue. We are all working on reading. If I'm the science teacher, we're reading. If I'm the math teacher, we're reading. So thinking of, if we're all working on reading, everybody has access to the data points in the dashboard to say, this is what I'm doing with reading. This is what I'm doing with reading. This is what the therapist is doing with reading, right? So thinking of all these components, and we're all using the data dashboard. So we're all seeing the inputs from each other, so there's no overlapping of services and support. All right. Using data to improve instruction. Of course, hey, I'm a big fan. PLCs, if your teachers are meeting and collaborating, that's the data points they should be talking about. Personalized instruction, if we're talking about individualized and differentiating professional development, hello, if we're not there, then we need to get there. With all this technology, there is no reason why we should not be differentiating professional development and thinking of different strategies that will work with different teachers. All right, targeted interventions, really thinking about, okay, so what does our before school after plan look like based on our reading component that we're talking about focusing on? What does our interventions look like? What does our pullouts look like? What is our library time? One of the most underutilized resource is our library. We have a whole slew of students that are struggling with reading, but lack of implementation of library. Think about, how can I beef up my library time, beef up my support, my parent interaction with library. So think about, what are your interventions that you have in place to allow for students to be successful? Okay, and then last but not least, but this is a major piece. If you are thinking about a focus, we have to work through the PLCs, through the professional development, with this curriculum pacing. If the curriculum needs to change it. If it doesn't address current issues or current context or current themes, then insert a theme that relates to the content or curriculum. If the curriculum says do one way, but we need to beef up our reading and we need to read more, we're going to have students read more, even though the curriculum says. So not being afraid to adjust the curriculum or insert a theme that relates to your overall goal. I think there are so many things that are so rigid in this K-12 school system that we're a little afraid to make change. Now, granted, there are some protocols and policies to make a change to the curriculum, and I wouldn't suggest everybody make their own changes, because then you kind of mess up the vertical and horizontal alignment. But what I am saying is, as a curriculum team, make the change necessary to meet the demographics, to meet the goal of the year. All right, so making data accessible. I think I said this enough. I'm not going to beat this, but make sure dashboards are easy to access. There's nothing worse than teachers not knowing how to access the dashboard, let alone not knowing how to put data in the dashboard, let alone not understanding that this data should be discussed at some of our PLCs, right? So being able to have teachers access the data, it should not be clunky. It should not be hard. You're paying for this service. Make it easy, make it plain. So user-friendly dashboards, teacher can access it. Even the therapist can access it. Regular training on the systems, how to connect the systems, and the data that we're putting in the systems. Another thing I think kind of we fall short is, what does it mean to align our lenses? What can we put in here? What are some things we should refrain from? So what does aligning our lenses look like? That may look like watching a classroom on video or going into the classroom and looking at some of the data points that we see, and then talking about the data points and talk about what could we add in the dashboard and whatnot, right? We're not even having those conversations. I'm pretty sure some schools were having them, but the schools that I've been kind of tasked to kind of work with, we're struggling with some of those conversations. All right, data storytelling. So you need funding. Let me just say, you cannot go the school year without thinking of what are some funding structures, what are some grants, what are some opportunities that you can possibly have with this data. So being able to recall data and speak on the data. What I've seen is people that can speak on the data are usually principals and assistant principals. That shouldn't be the case, right? Everybody should be able to speak publicly about the data and talk about some of the areas of growth and areas of need and things that we are working on currently. So if teachers cannot speak about the data, the goal, the vision, where we're going, where we're headed, where we are, then we need to fix that right away, because we need to make sure that we're all in cahoots and we're all working on the same thing at the same time. All right, collaboration. Think about teachers, collaboration, specialists like your coaches or coordinators, your math coaches, things like that. And what are the specialists doing to support that initiative? Because what I see is many times we're working in silos, and many times we don't talk to the other person about the student to make growth with the student, and we don't truly collaborate in a data collaboration meeting. So thinking about what are the ways you do that, and when do you do that? Is it PD day? Is it PLCs? Is it never? So always think about, how do you do that? All right, I'm at 10. Here we go. Encouraging a data mindset. We have gone away from data, and I'm generalizing. This is not every school, but I'm seeing that sometimes the culture is not around data. It's, I did the thing and I just did the thing, right? So it's always disconnected from the data. So it's like the teacher in the classroom, I taught the lesson. Right? Where's the evidence of student growth? What did the students do? How many students mastered the skill? How are you going to reteach the skill? How are you going to pre-teach the skill? How do you know if the students even taught the skill in the first place? Did you assess them, right? Or did you identify what they knew before you went in, right? So really having those conversations, I can go on to every aspect, every person in education, and identify some of the pain points that we see in each of the opportunities. But many times it's not connected, it's not tied, and it's not continuous. Okay, so here we go. How do we recognize? What are the rewards? How are the celebrations? Hey, teachers, I know this has been our focus. Let me tell you about the things that we were successful with. How do I call on the announcements? Hey, guys, Miss Jones, she did a wonderful job this month. Her scores, da, da, da. And I hate to tie it all to scores, but there are other data points that you can refer to. But remember, if these two, I don't even want to say two data points are your focus for the year, everything should be aligned, from the posters outside the wall to celebrating attendance to shout outs to teachers to special notes left in a note box. Everything has to be intentional from leadership standpoint, teacher standpoint, and even student standpoint. Student data, student being able to articulate their data is crucial as well. Transparency, right? So what I see is our system. Some people have access to certain things, some people don't. So thinking about, what does the transparency look like through the data lens? And then what is the reflective practice? What am I doing to look at my data to see how I can improve, or see how I can reteach some assignments, some work to make sure that there's mastery of the skill? What does the reflection look like in all components relating to our 1 to 2 data points and data tracking? How do we overcome these challenges? So some of the things I'm seeing is there's data overload. So many times when leaders struggle with a vision, or struggle with, this is our focus area, this is our subsidiary, when we struggle to name it and identify our lenses and talk about some of the components that we want to see tracked, we kind of lose focus. And so the data becomes, and it moves. Let me just tell you, in some schools, if there's not a consistent focus in everything we do, we're tasting this piece. Like we need to taste the vision. If we're not doing that, then it becomes data overload. That means teachers are tracking attendance, teachers are tracking behavior, teachers are tracking like referrals, teachers are looking at their math assessment scores. They're looking at how, so really understanding the components and being able to support the schools in these metrics are crucial. Okay, so resistance to change. Of course, some teachers are going to be resistant, but remember, continued positive encouragement, positive feedback, mentioning the same things. Eventually, teachers will come on board, or they'll either leave, right? But really having a vision, I think many teachers really want to do well. And in order to do well, they need to know where the target is so they can make sure they're meeting your expectations. In limited time. We do have limited time. And so you are starting to see many people get very creative with online and asynchronous learning. So of course we have the before and after school, we have the during school, we have the lunch, we have the all the things, right? But really thinking of how could we make things more individualized, make things faster for students who already know different concepts and who already know different skills, right? What does that even look like? Okay. And that is in the online environment. Okay. So here we go. Let me make sure I take off the banner so I can see. Here we go. Action steps. Here are our next action steps for this. Here we go. Identify your metrics, right? Beginning of the year. So now is the time you should be planning for the beginning of your metrics. Here we go. And then align it with important goals with the curriculum. And then train your staff, right? Identifying your lens, implement cycles. So you're in the classroom, you're talking about your coaching cycles, your data cycles, and then you're collaborating with everybody, looking at your dashboard, seeing how you're going to compile all this data. You're leveraging technology to make sure you can have a systemic analytical process. Okay, so remember, we have to always share experiences, ask questions, and connect with everybody because we want to have an improved outcome and set the goal to make sure we are on par and on task too for the network. So I hope this was helpful. If you are interested in learning more or diving deep or just trying to get an assessment on where I am in the school or just a quick chat, make sure you DM me. My conversation, my link is below. Let's schedule time. Let's chat. I hope this was very helpful. Talk to you later, chat. Again, thank you so much, Victoria from the Pink Tub. I appreciate you sponsoring the segment. Talk to you later. Bye.